Hi. So, today I would like to talk about results, what results are, and the process of what creates the results. Okay? Because generally, when you're involved in this kind of realm of health and fitness, that's what you're after. You're after results. Typically, results being different to the results you've got now. Otherwise, you wouldn't be looking, right? So first of all, I'm just going to delve a little bit into a basic principle, right? And that is that your results are going to be here, right? Results. Yeah. And that is what we call an effect, right? So effect goes over here. So results, and that is an effect. So when we have an effect, that also means that we have a cause, okay? So cause and effect. So a result, okay, is the effect which was caused by something, okay? What causes results, okay? So generally, you are going to be the sum of whatever it is that you repeat on a consistent basis. Whatever is the most consistent things that you have, okay, going on in your life, that is the results that you will have, okay? So that means that we can give that a word of habit, okay? So your habits, okay, your habits are the cause of these results, the effect, okay? So your habits are the things that you create. So say, for example, that you want to be fitter, okay? You're not fit enough at the moment. The reason you're not fit enough at the moment is because the habit you have of whatever physical activity you're doing is not enough to create the result of the fitness that you want. Therefore, the habit of your activity has to change, okay? So that's a nice example, right? In fact, we could probably throw that straight in there, okay? So let's put exercise, right, as a habit, exercise. So exercise, and the result being, your body and fitness, okay? Right, I'm just going to make a point here that these aren't going to end up lining up properly, probably, okay? Don't get ahead of yourselves and think everything's going to be that neat. It's not. But the idea is, here's habits, here are results, okay? Cause and effect. But you may have noticed there is another column here, right? So I'm actually going to say something that people really either completely underestimate or completely ignore or just aren't aware of at all, okay? And that is your habits are actually an effect, okay? So we have an effect over here, okay? So your habits, while they are a cause of your results, they are in themselves an effect. Okay, what is the cause? So if we go over here, we have another cause and effect. What creates your habits? Okay? In my view, what creates your habits is your culture. Okay? Yeah. Now, what I mean by culture is I do not mean things in a broader society sense. Okay, while that does have an impact, I very much mean your culture is the people that you hang around. Okay, you could call that a microculture if you wish. Okay, obviously they are affected by the wider society, but the culture of the people that you hang around can be so varied within the social culture that I'm not really referring to the big culture. I'm talking to the very direct interactions that you have with the people around you, okay? So let's have a look there, shall we? What does that include? That includes family, okay, obviously, okay? Massive impact culturally on your habits and the things that stem from that. Also, obviously, your friends, okay? Also things like work colleagues, okay, I'm just going to put work okay? And then you have other things like what do you absorb, okay? So what do you absorb on a regular basis, okay? So things like the news, like media, not just meaning social media, but also things like what films do you watch, what music do you listen to. All of that stuff is culture. And all of that stuff, okay, going in, you can't, if you experience something, you cannot help but absorb it, okay? You will absorb the stuff that's around you. You have no choice, okay? And so your culture is what is going to create habits. So to give an example, and this is something that I see happen all the time, people want to have different results with their body and their fitness and so on and so forth, right? And indeed, like you tend to have a couple of major things for this, right? So the results that people want are things like body, and that is an L, not a C, blimey. My writing is awful like this. And health, right? So people will have some aspect of going, I want to change my body, I want to change my health, okay? And exercise is something that they're not doing enough of, right? And as a result, their results here they're unhappy with, okay? And so they then try and do some different or more intense or just some exercise to change this. But the reason they're not exercising at all, right, in the first place is because it's actually an effect of this cause here. And the summation of this culture is one of most of these people may not exercise, or if they see you exercising, they may say, why are you doing that? Why are you being weird? Like, oh my God, exercise, I can't be bothered. Oh my God, exercise is horrible, blah, 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 blah. If you're surrounded by that influence, that is why you're not exercising right now. Whereas if you had a different culture, different people around you that were like, exercise is great, exercise is amazing, you know, like exercise like is such a cool thing, exercise is just something that we do, you know, it's such a different take on things, okay? And as a result of that, your results will be very, very different, okay? So what other habits like also do your culture like lean into? Okay, so it's obviously not just exercise, is it? Like a huge one is food. Okay, one of the things that I see it's kind of painful. Like there's the science-based community and the science-based crowd when they're talking about food, and people talk about like, you know, you shouldn't say there's such thing as a bad food when you're like a fitness or health person speaking, right? Because it will give people disordered eating and so on and so forth. And it's like, if someone gets a disordered eating thing from like someone saying that was bad food, that wasn't what caused it. What probably caused it was their family, all the way back when they were way younger, planted all of those seeds for them to have disordered pathos towards food potentially. You can't just say that someone saying something is bad for you will suddenly create an eating disorder or disordered eating, because it doesn't work like that. A lot of that pathology is already planted way deeper and way earlier, okay, in the family, right? And that has a massive impact. So if you're now in a family-like environment as a child where the parents are like unhealthy, they're eating, you know, like not in a mindful way, that is going to be imprinted on the child, okay? The child doesn't have any choice. This is the thing, the child has no power over the situation, they don't have a choice. And so as a result, once they get to the point where they now want to address their habits because of their results over here, okay, their health or their body, so on and so forth, they now have a massive uphill struggle because potentially they're still in this culture. This is why it's so important. We can't just say, for example, like one of the reasons why the helpful bit of advice isn't that very helpful of move more, eat less, okay, for like general health advice, is because if the people that you're surrounded by do not do that, okay, and don't like, you know, encourage and all that sort of stuff, then that sort of stuff is going to be so much harder to take on board, to gain those results, okay? And that's why I started over here for results, but in actual fact, we have to go all the way to here and look at our culture in order to actually address what is going wrong. Because the habits is the secondary part. Even though the habits directly cause the results, this is secondary to your culture. This is how important this is. This is not, oh, you can sort of look at this. Your habits are going to be supported and created by this bit here. We are such social creatures that we daren't sometimes do anything that we want to do for fear of being rejected by the culture. That is hugely powerful and important. And at the same time, we also then have to realize if we want these results and these results are really, really bad for us and our habits are bad and it's because of this, we need to change this, okay? We need to be brave. We need to go and find a new culture, a new community, a new group of people, because there are lots and lots of people that are just toxic, horrible, horrible people, and they will remain that way for the rest of your life, okay? They're not going to change. So you can either try and change them, and sometimes you can do that. You can exude like such a power that the culture changes, but that's difficult and rare, right? Another aspect is that you could just think, well, I'm going to change, and they reject you. They're like, you're no longer welcome. And so you can either decide, well, I want to be part of the culture, I'm scared of being alone, or you could be like, fine, I will get my stick and my red, white, spotted bag, and I will march off into the sunset and find a new culture, a new civilization for me. You can do that, right? And generally that's the way it's going to go. Either the culture changes or you leave. You know, very rarely does a culture actually support you changing and moving outside of the culture. That's why friends drift apart. That's why families split up. There's all sorts of crazy stuff. People are kind of determined to be like, no, in order to be with us, you must be with us, okay? So it is what it is, okay? So if we have all of these influence us, what other habits do we need to look at, okay? And what other results are there? Like, we need to really be mindful, because this dictates actually our entire life, okay? So also there's things like your mind. How encouraged are you to learn? How encouraged are you to think outside of the box, to take on different ideas? How encouraged are you to challenge and ask difficult questions? A lot of people in a lot of cultures have, no, we don't ask questions like that here, it's considered rude. Why? Why can't you challenge stuff? You don't respect me, blah, blah. Shut up! Ask questions. If people don't like to ask questions, they're not a good culture for growth, okay? You need to ask questions, you need to challenge in order to learn and grow, okay? So then you also have mood, okay? What is your mood like? Do you feel supported? Do you feel happy? Do you feel like, you know, if you could go out on an adventure, that people would be there for you? And then there's a big one at the bottom of all of this, a massive one. One of the effects, okay, is just the actual feeling of love, okay? This one here sounds soppy, sounds daft, but honestly, if you've got a good culture, okay, then habits that come from that culture will make you feel love. If you feel starved of love, more than likely these people, like, they're probably fucking awful, right? So, we want these effects here to be good. We want positive body image, we want good, robust health, we want a mind that challenges and questions and learns, we want a mood that is relevant, upbeat. I mean, sometimes sad things happen, you can be sad, that's okay, but you want a mood that snaps back and continues to be like uplifted, right? And you want to feel love. You want to feel proper human social connection and nourishment for your soul. All of this stuff, super, super important. So then the habits that create all of that, right? So obviously we talked about exercise a bit for the body and health, and food for the body and health, but also food for the mind and mood. Okay? These are really big deals, right? But then you've also got things like the bad habits. Okay? So the coping mechanisms. Are you surrounded by people, okay, that partake in things like alcohol and drugs, okay? That's a really big one. A lot of people partake in this stuff, and even if you then start to go, I'm not going to do this stuff, people go, what? Go on, 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 right? Okay, that does say alcohol, by the way. That really butchered word. Looks like a funfair mirror, doesn't it? Anyway, right? Again, it's that whole thing. What are people insisting that you do because they do it? Okay? Like, what are people, is it something that's going to be bad for you? Okay? Very often the answer is yes. Okay? And that comes from the culture. How supported are you that if someone says, hey, do this, and you go, no, I'm not going to do that, do they go, okay, that's cool? Or do they say, if you want to be in our gang, you best do this thing? Really? That is not a love thing, is it? Do you know what I mean? Unless it's like, hey, you better stop torturing those puppies. No, I want to torture these puppies. Well, we're not going to let you in the gang if you torture those puppies. Obviously, there's context, but you know what I mean. You're doing something that's bad for you, easily demonstrably bad for you, then this culture is not a healthy one. It's not one that's going to lead to your growth and your happiness. Okay? So, a real bad one, okay, is abuse. We're getting into the heavy topics, okay? Abuse is a habit, okay? The effects are something that detriment to all of this, but abuse is a habit, and abuse is on all of the levels, okay? So even the whole thing of like emotional abuse, as well as every other abuse, right? Abuse is a habit. So is the culture around you abusive to you? Do you then think that you need to be abusive back? Do you then think that you need to abuse others in order for you to get your position? If that's the case, this culture has been incredibly toxic for you, and you need to think, I need to distance myself, okay? This is something that absolutely occurs, and we must not allow ourselves, even if we are the recipient, we must not allow ourselves to push this on other people, okay? Must not be allowed. That is an absolute no-no, okay? No justification, no excuse, no matter what. That must not become a habit, okay? So, what really do we want to look for in our habits from the culture, okay? So one of my favourite words for this, okay, is teamwork, okay? So teamwork for me is basically the number one thing between human beings that needs to exist if it's going to be a healthy, supportive and fun time for all involved, okay? Teamwork. So this way you can have your differences, but as long as you think to yourself, no, I am aligned and I'm interested in this person moving forward and myself moving forward, yay, everyone can have a good time and grow and develop, okay? So the culture needs to be one of teamwork. If the culture is more of one of like dictatorship or tyranny or abuse or like, you know, like destruction of things and stuff like that, that doesn't sound like teamwork to me. So ask yourself the question, is any of the relationships you are in supportive in a teamwork kind of way, okay? Because then what teamwork creates is a habit of support, okay, and growth, right? So we have this little bubble here, okay? That's what we want. We want teamwork, we want a habit of support, and we want a teamwork resulting in growth, okay? This is the cultural effect, okay? This is a habit, okay? Because the flip side of that, right, is when you've got people that basically, do they habitually operate in fear, okay? And do the people around you do the gossip thing, right? Okay, so here's the negative bubble, okay? Now, when I say gossip, what I mean is this a culture of people talking about you and not to you, okay? If people are talking about you and not to you, that is not teamwork, okay? End of. And I'm not talking about people that you're not friends with, whatever, right? I'm talking about people that would claim they are on your side. People that are in your environment that may be friendly to you. But if they're talking about you and not to you, they are not on your team, okay? And they're probably operating out of fear. Even if they're saying nice things about you, but they're not saying it to you, that's still a form of gossip, and that's still pretty trash. And the problem is that is not a loving thing to do, okay? Teamwork, support, and growth basically fosters all of these things to go up, okay? All of these things, okay? And that is your culture, okay? So when we're talking about results, I want good results, we often focus on just this bit, the habits, okay? But really what we need to look at is what is the culture that is creating the habits that is creating the results. Cause and effect, okay? We need to address the culture, because if we try and only address the habits, and the habits are very different and very new, and the culture isn't already doing them, the chances are that there's going to be so much resistance that you're not going to be able to change, other than leaving the culture itself completely behind, right? And a lot of the time people are just too much racked up in fear to be able to do that, right? So it's a tough situation, right? But I would argue, do it anyway, because anytime you change your own culture, you think, you know what, forget all these other people, they're not doing what I want to do. I'm going to do what I want to do that's good for me and good for the people around me. And if you are in a culture of one, you are on your own, what you'll actually find is if you go out into the world with that, you will find a culture like you, okay? Go out there with strength, go out there with independent thoughts, and you will find a culture that supports you. And then that can now be your culture, and you will create teamwork through that, okay? Leave the dickheads behind. Seriously, leave the dickheads behind. They're not going to change, right? Well, they might, but it's unlikely. Okay? People can change, but most of the time they can't be bothered, right? It's only the people that really want different ones here that are willing to do that and have all the challenging stuff, the questions and that sort of stuff. So anytime people shut your questions down, no, you're someone who doesn't like growth and challenge. You're probably toxic. Questions are good and healthy, and they should happen. So, culture leads to habits, leads to results. If you want better results, you have to change your habits. Almost certainly, you have to change your culture. Be brave. Get it done. Have a good day.